I'm excited to welcome Elizabeth to the podcast. Elizabeth, welcome to the Marketing Millennials pod.
Thank you so much. Two things that I love, marketing and the millennial generation and the generations that follow. So this is going to be really fun today.
Let's get into it. So you're both a pro athlete and a director of athlete marketing. So how's this perspective of being a marketer and an athlete shape the way you approach partnerships between brands and athletes?
Well, I think that considering how unique of a story that is right up front, right? I have two full-time careers. That really helps me inform how we design campaigns and activations with our other athletes. So I work for a women's sports sponsorships marketing firm called Parity. We are solely dedicated to professional women athletes and their respective sports. And for most of these athletes, they too are working a full-time job or maybe a handful of part-time jobs along with their athletic career. And so I know from firsthand experience that the multifaceted nature of these women make them exceptional brand partners for a variety of types of campaigns and honestly a variety of ways to activate. You can activate across social, R&D. You can do things in broader, more in-depth brand campaigns and collateral. Speaking, events, appearances. There's so many ways to work with these athletes. And there's something that is just impossible to imitate about these athletes' stories.
I want to maybe take one step back. So you were a 9-time champion in water skiing, which is so cool because I can't even stand up on a water ski. So that's amazing. But could you explain what it's like to be a professional water skier, and how that shaped your mentality as a marketer and what it takes to get to that high of a level?
Yeah, of course. So I learned to ski when I was 3 years old. Some say it's child abuse. I say way to get some experience under my belt early on. But I quickly picked up the sport. I had a lot of good guidance and coaching. And so yes, I am a 9-time national champion. I'm a US Open champion. I'm a Pro Tour champion. And I've dedicated a lot of time and a lot of hours to my sport. And there's a lot of delayed gratification and long-term strategy that comes with being an athlete. And that certainly has informed a lot of my marketing strategies. We're really looking for partnerships where the athlete story and the brand story can really integrate into each other and become a long-lasting pillar of that overall brand awareness. But that being said, I have to be really good at managing a lot of things at one time. So, over the summer when I'm on tour and we'll say I'm in Europe, south of France, and I'm skiing, that all sounds really romantic and wonderful, and it is fun and exciting. But I still have to do my job. Which is director of athlete marketing at Parity. And so that being said, I have to be able to pivot quickly. I have to be able to adapt. I have to be accurate the first time with things. And so that really translates well to any corporate space. But it's a lot of time management and a lot of doing things at weird hours of the day, but I embrace that.
And I want to also get into the space. I mean, women's marketing has had this slow growth, and now with social media, you are seeing so many woman personalities out there that are crushing it, especially the Olympic athletes, the women's basketball players. But what do you think is driving the shift in more attention to the women's sector? And also, how can brands capitalize on these amazing women athletes authentically?
It's my favorite question, Daniel. So thank you for asking. 2024 was undoubtedly the year of the female athlete, and women's sports are certainly not new, but this much attention and this many dollars being poured into their sports, this is new. So we've got this rapidly growing semi-creator economy, and I think everybody's trying to figure out how to capitalize on it best. But the why behind it really has to do with the fact that female athletes can really bridge the gap between aspirational marketing and accessible marketing in a way that male athletes generally can't, right? When we think of high-end professional male athletes, we think of sports cars, we think of really big houses in LA and New York and Miami. We think of hot girls, and we think of a lifestyle that sure we would love to live, but it's just not attainable for us. This isn't really the case with how female athletes are presenting themselves across their channels. They share the behind the scenes struggles, right? They share their insecurities. And so that makes them more attainable while they're still accomplishing incredible things. So to their fans, to their followers, they are the kind of person that potentially that fan could become. And I love to see how brands are leaning into that and telling the maybe less than picture perfect story about these athletes, because it just resonates deeper and in a way that we really haven't seen with traditional sports marketing so far.
And I mean, you said this earlier, probably unless you're the point or like the 1% of athletes, you're self-paying for a lot of what you're doing to be successful in your sport, especially like if you I mean the basketball players have got a lot of attention, but there's a lot of basketball players that are not getting attention. There's sports that are out there where you're traveling around the country basically on your own dime, so you actually are having to have a job to sustain you as an athlete. But I, which what I'm going with this is it makes you have those real world struggles of what actually people are going through day to day and are doing double, triple duty of what I just even remember when I was a college athlete playing football when NIL wasn't a thing, and you're like just was your school's paid for, but you still like 8 hours a day sports and then 8 hours a day or plus going to school, and you have like 8 hours of sleep and that's it. So it's like you have to dedicate so much time, and people don't realize that training is not only that 1 or 2 hours, there's that mental time, there's the preparation, there's the recovery and all that stuff. So I how can what are some of the most like significant barriers women athletes still face in the marketing space, and how are they breaking down those barriers?
Well, you really touched on it there. Income and having financial stability is for sure the number one barrier to any female athlete growing their presence or growing their skill set in their respective sport. At the end of last year, Parity did a survey of all of our athletes, which is over 1,000 professional women athletes, and we found that around half of them are seeing a net zero income at the end of their season, or they're in the negative, right? So to your point, they're putting a lot of skin in the game. It's very much pay to play for these women athletes. And so that alone is a huge barrier to elevating their personal brand in any capacity, right? Content creation, the tools and the skills, that costs money to purchase, learn, hire somebody else. Most of them cannot afford a manager, let alone some kind of social media manager or brand manager. So any type of income that you are able to put in these athletes' pockets is only going to help them grow their own presence. And in that survey that we did with them around finances, we found that they were very aware of the fact that their time is limited, and the only way that they can get back more time in their day would be to hire out some of those services that could then help them grow their brand. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. But a lot of what we do at Parity is trying to offer free education, free resources to help solve for some of that while they pursue other avenues to create income. And it's very relatable. You know, early in my career, I worked 3 part-time jobs so that I could ski during daylight hours and then I could work all hours of the night. Because when you want it, when you have that much passion and drive, you'll do just about anything to make it happen.
It is true. I mean, if that's what keeps a lot of athletes going, and if you don't, it's the same in marketing. I mean, you could see passion through marketing, and you could see passion through sports, and if you can mix those two with, um, it's an amazing um, connection between those two. But I want to go into how should brands look, what does it look like an ideal partnership with an athlete? Like what does that even, if I was a brand and saying, hey, I want to sponsor Elizabeth right now, she has a great social presence, she's a world-renowned skier, but like what would a example of a partnership, how should I approach that as a brand, how should I approach you, should I approach a manager, what is the what should I do?
Great question. And I think a lot of brands find themselves in that exact situation. That's why Parity exists, right? If you don't know where to start or how to reach out to that athlete, because the truth is, if you were to reach out to me through my DMs on Instagram, right, I might get that DM, I might not. A lot of these athletes receive a lot of fan mail, if we want to call it that, and sometimes it can kind of get lost in the sauce. So if you don't have, an email address readily available on your Instagram bio for a marketer to reach out to you through, it can be kind of hard to build those connections. LinkedIn is a great place to reach out to athletes if you have athletes in mind. However, if you're really starting from scratch and saying, I want to play in the women's sports space, I see these properties are the most affordable sports properties on the market, but I have no idea what sport, what athlete, I don't know where to go. Parity exists for that exact reason. We have, these 1,000 athletes from 80 sports. And so if you tell us, I'm really looking to drive home pillars around community and teamwork, and I'm, really centered in the Chicago area, I'm going to say, great. I can think of off the top of my head, 3 soccer players on our roster who are playing in Chicago right now. Let's have them create some content around these teamwork and community messaging pillars. And then let's really drive that home in the Chicago area, right? So we can really help you match with the perfect athlete for whatever the campaign may be. And if you don't even really know creatively what type of content, maybe even some of the messaging feels a little bit fuzzy, we have a great team who can help kind of flesh that out and get creative and help you get inspired. And I think that's really the way to go for any marketer who's looking to play in the sports space, is find sports experts and let them guide you.
On the opposite side of things, what are some things you're seeing that brands are looking for when they come to you and say, hey, I want to partner with X athlete? Like what are you things you're seeing? What do they want out of the partnership? What does that look like? What is the end goal of the partnership? What are you seeing in that side?
Usually what we see is a brand saying, I want to tell a new part of our brand story that we don't really know how to authentically and organically tie to our existing brand message, right? So maybe it's around a product launch, or it could just be diversifying their message. Maybe it's a rebrand. So working with female athletes offers them that opportunity to say, okay, here's this multi-dimensional, multifaceted woman who is excellent in many fields. We too are brand XYZ that is excellent in many ways. And there's some ways that you may not have heard of before, or maybe we're offering something new. So much like this athlete, there's more to us than maybe what you already know, right? And so I think that is a really great, timely, and relevant solve for brands who they want to start a new conversation, but they don't really know how to do it. I think women athletes are really the solution there.
And what are some of like the biggest mistakes brands make when partnering with athletes, and how can they avoid them?
Biggest mistake I think would be chasing a name just for the name and not really ensuring that that athlete, who is still a person, aligns authentically with your brand. So, we all have a document somewhere with our, core values, mission, vision, all of that, right? who is this athlete as a person, and do they align? So while we love the Caitlin Clarks and the Coco Gauffs of the world, and these are incredibly talented women who deserve everything that they have and more, does your brand really need a Caitlin Clark? Or is there another athlete that can better match the objectives of your campaign, and potentially create more buzz, right? Because it's such an authentic storytelling moment. So I think that getting hung up on the name of the athlete, or maybe who you as the marketer think is buzzy, and not trusting the experts to really tell you, well, hey, if you really want to resonate in this community, we recommend Anaya Tapper, for example, who just came back from the Olympics. She was on the U.S. women's rugby team, so the first Olympic medal for USA women's rugby. She has really strong communities in LA and on the East Coast. We think she's a better fit for all of these reasons, right? So you might not have known Naya's name when I brought it up just now, but she might be a better fit for the campaign. And what's more buzzy than an Olympian, right? So I think being open to a variety of types of athletes and sports is definitely the right way to get started in your sports marketing campaigns.
And I think also, I mean, you can take a budget that, let's say, like Caitlin Carr's budget, and put it into like 5 great women athlete that will get you way more attention, because Caitlin is focusing on these multi-million dollar partnerships and not ahead of you. I also saw, like, I was looking at a creator talk about this today, and they were saying that the brands make so many mistakes approaching the creators or athletes, because what they do is they say, hey, creator, or athlete, here are the 10 things I want you to say, instead of saying, hey, athlete, here's my, let's say, performance t-shirt company. I'm going to send you a couple. Feel free to put that in your video, however naturally it fits with you. Tell your story the way you want it. Something like that, and making it feel more authentic to them, and they can tell the story to their audience, instead of saying they have to hit on this, and this, and it becomes just a promo piece instead of like naturally fitting in their content.
Yeah, for sure. We have seen brands be a little too prescriptive in initiating the partnership, and it does kill the authenticity and the creativity of the content that the athletes are producing. You have to remember that, every day of the athlete's life, something new is happening. So if you want it to feel authentic, letting the athlete really tailor it to exactly what's happening in their life right now. Are they in an off season? Are they in an injury recovery period? Are they learning how to work with a new coach because maybe their team has a new coach, right? There's so many little stories there that nobody else can get anywhere other than from that athlete. And if you are overly prescriptive, you too are not getting to capitalize on that story.
Is there any like recent or campaigns that you saw that you can share light on that was really successful when a brand partnered with X athlete and they saw X result?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got, kind of a few favorite clients off the top of my head. We've worked with Morgan Stanley around educating these athletes' audiences on the tools that Morgan Stanley offers to create financial security, right? So what perfect alignment. We've got professional women athletes who are exceptional at what they do, and they frequently have to work another job or multiple jobs. Well, financial security is a perfect thematic to tie into these athletes' stories. And so, we had one campaign where they worked with a handful of athletes, I want to say 5 or 6, including some Olympic gold medalists, and the average engagement rate on the content these athletes produced hovered above 4%, which, when you look at influencer marketing engagement rates, that is pretty good. Another great example is our work with Microsoft. As Microsoft launches new tools or wants their audiences to see how these tools can be used in different ways, working with athletes was another phenomenal way for them to do that. They did a campaign with us around Title IX and Mother's Day. We brought together collections of mother-daughter duos. So, professional women athletes who gave birth, and now those young women are professional athletes as well, talking about equality and using Microsoft platforms to do so. Microsoft also launched another campaign called Make Way Unlocked, and they really wanted the athletes to tell the story of data and how athletes use data in their day-to-day lives to make data look more approachable. And that was a bigger campaign. We activated with, I want to say, 40-ish athletes, and generated almost 250 pieces of content, and reached around 5 million followers. So really fantastic examples of how these two brands that other than any male sports properties that they sponsor, they don't really play in the sports space, right? That's how they chose to activate. But, I know those are kind of some of those more enterprise level accounts. That being said, there are smaller ways to activate that are more affordable and approachable for every brand size.
I also want to know, now we're in a new year, what are some trends shaping the women's athlete space? What do you see happening in 2025 and beyond? And also, there's a lot of big events coming up obviously 2026 Winter Olympics, 2028 Summer Olympics. Like, you preparing for this, like the right person can start today, not in like a year or 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah. And, that's really what we recommend. A lot of brands aren't aware of Rule 40 and how it applies to the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And Rule 40 has to do with that blackout period around the games, right? When athletes cannot promote any sponsors that they have personally, and they can only reference sponsors of the games themselves. So there is a little bit of a legal situation there, and you have to apply for certain types of status to be able to sponsor athletes around the games. So that's definitely a ball that you want to get rolling early. But I think that after this past games, we saw many sweethearts come out of it, right? One of my favorites being Alona Mar. There have got to be dozens of brands kicking themselves that they did not work with her before the games, because, she's only on the up and up. So really taking the time to sit down and look at, okay, who is most likely an Olympic and Paralympic hopeful for Milano 2026? And who do we really want to help tell their story in their journey to the games? That's almost always a home run strategy. But beyond that, I think that we're going to see female athletes stepping into more roles and more facets, like we've talked about. I think we're going to see more women athletes speaking. I think we're going to see more women athletes in R&D, especially. R&D, I think, is a huge missed opportunity for a lot of brands. The ability to say that, this product was developed in partnership with, I'll just say myself, Elizabeth Montavon, right? That holds weight, and that makes the story much more unique. So I would love to see more women athletes included in those R&D processes, and then in the corresponding marketing campaigns.
Yeah, imagine if like these skis are the skis of Elizabeth, 9-time national champion, and this is her choice. Like, that's an easy, and they were made in conjunction with her to make the best skis. Like, that's an easy, like, partner. I think like a layup partnership, or like this swimming gear or whatever, like whatever you need for like, or this is the best boat that you could use, whatever you use. I'm just making things up. It's just, there's so many like layups that you do. Also, like, just nutritional stuff. And also, like, you're not only a skier, you're a social media, like, how could you like tie in your work life and your athlete life together to make this like a holistic partnership with both of them?
Yeah, because I know my own story so well, and because I do spend a fair amount of my day in corporate America, if you will, a partnership with like a Warby Parker for blue light glasses would totally make sense. And it would take Warby Parker into the sports space, which I haven't seen them play yet, in a way that is still super authentic, because I do sit in front of screens a lot. Other things that come to mind, press on nails and nail care. My gloves really beat up my hands a lot. And so the ability to quickly make my nails look good, that would be really fun, really unique, and something that I haven't seen yet. So I think, again, we're really circling back to that conversation about getting to know the athlete and kind of how they spend most of their day, and then looking for those little opportunities where, how can my brand improve their quality of life without making them change their overall lifestyle?
There are a lot of parents listening to the Market Millennials, millennial parents, Gen X parents. What is like your advice to those parents who have like young female athletes that are inspiring to be like athletes, and they're trying to make it, and some people are like telling them they can't do it, and they you can't make money from this, or so, like what would you tell them?
Well, first of all, you can make it and you can make money from sport. I think that you have to not hang your hat on prize money alone, right? So you have to look at it as you're going to have multiple streams of revenue. And we've got prize money, you've got sponsorships, you've got, potentially like paid social media collaboration opportunities. And then, if you choose to work a job, or if the parent is funding the rest of everything, right? That's that kind of bucket. And that's how I choose to look at it. But you have to pursue different things within each vertical. So prize money comes down to performance only. I leave that to the athlete and the coach to figure out, right? But when we start looking at sponsorships and collaborations and partnerships, this is where you need to decide, okay, do I want to look within my local community, right? Is there a restaurant that my family frequents that does really well, that if they, gave me $5,000 for the season, and I promise to promote them across my social media because I have a large following in this geographic area, that is a partnership that would make sense. So, for these parents, I want them to remember that it's not only large national and international brands that they need to reach out to or consider trying to get the attention of. There are smaller local businesses that you should not turn your nose up at. There are many opportunities to work with these businesses to help them grow word of mouth and a lot of that traditional marketing and advertising that we don't talk about that often. Can you do a meet and greet at their business? If they're launching a new product, how can you actually be there physically to help? That has a lot of value. It's certainly something that male athletes tend to overlook. But I think that young female athletes can start by putting down really deep roots in their community, and then turn around and get good at telling their story across social media.
Yeah, I love the local marketing angle, because I think that's uh, such an underrepresented opportunity, and I also think like what you just said about you could. I've noticed that, like, especially in sports, like people want to follow the journey of these female athletes. It's interesting. It's different. It's like like I have no idea about water skiing, but you watching your journey is just like, oh, now it's like this is cool behind the scenes that I did not know you have to do, and would have to, like, the what all the things that go into it. It's just crazy to like know that, and I think a lot of people want that story and like relate to those stories and want to see behind the scenes of sports. That's why all these like sports shows are exploding, because they don't want to see like the competition on that they see on the TV. They want to see the behind the scenes, like what it takes to do something.
Yeah.
I think the last one of the a couple more questions for you is, one is like, if you could change one thing about how women's sports marketing operates today, what would it be and why?
That is a great question. I think that you kind of already touched on it. Brands kind of forcing the talking points on the athlete or the messaging on the athlete. I think that, you know, it would be in every marketer's best interest who wants to play in the women's sports sponsorships and marketing space to give themselves enough runway to be collaborative with the athlete. So say, here's the campaign that we're thinking of. This is just some ideas. Here's our notes. Does this resonate with you? Do you see any opportunities to improve it, make it more authentic to you? Did we miss something? Are we inaccurate actually? And really allowing these athletes to help you with the lift of the creative side of this campaign. I think that a lot of times athletes get a bad rap. People think they're coming kind of with their hands out saying, give me money and I'll do my part. And in our athlete community that I've worked with, that is just not the case. The athletes want to meet the brand. They want to meet the marketers. They want to know what the campaign idea is. And they always have more ideas on how to make it better or improve it. And so let them help you.
I want to also go end this podcast with just some rapid fire questions with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
One is, what's the best advice you've ever received about marketing?
Best advice? Wow, that is a great question. I think remembering that at the end of the day, it's about humans. And so always tying things back to what part of human nature does this marketing XYZ tactic connect with? It'll always bring you back to a place of sanity.
What's your dream athlete brand collaboration?
Ones I've seen exist. I loved Alona Mar and her Maybelline campaign. It's a lipstick she has always worn on the pitch. And finally, it took them long enough to work with her and promote that exact SKU of lipstick. Genius and makes sense.
What's a book, podcast, resource that every marketer should check out?
Quiet. It's a book by Susan Cain.
And last is, what is a marketing hill you would die on?
Marketing hill I would die on. That organic content marketing is going nowhere.
I love that. And then where could people learn about your work and how could they connect with you?
Parity now. So Google us, check us out. We have 1 million case studies, a lot of resources on how to get into the women's sports marketing sponsorship space. So check us out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, and of course our website. And then for more about me, I'm on Instagram, Elizabeth Montavon, LinkedIn, of course, and then the Water Ski Pro Tour. If you have managed to fall in love with the sport of water skiing during the duration of this podcast, give them a follow as well. And they'll have everything water skiing for you.
I know. I'm actually now excited to go try stand up on a water ski after this.
You should.
I remember the last time I went, I think I was in Lake Tahoe, and I probably stood up for a good 1.5 seconds. So I think back then, being a bigger guy, that the body weight, to pull you up a little was not there, but now I think I can get myself up. So
it's a totally counterintuitive sport. Some days when I'm out there, I'm like, why am I doing this? Because everything my body and brain are telling me to do is the wrong thing. But no, it's a lot of fun. And if you want something short to watch, my husband actually produced a 20-minute documentary on me. It's on YouTube. It's called The Dark Horse of Water Skiing. So again, a great example of content doesn't have to be perfect to do really, really well and tell a really cool story.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.